Welcome, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. March meeting of the EITP committee. Just to remind committee members and members of the public that we did not meet in January or February, so this is our first meeting of the year, but not first meeting of the council year, because the council year starts in December of the previous year, and that's the last meeting that we have the minutes for today. So this is actually our second meeting of this term, of this year of council. Anyway, so we need to approve the agenda that you see in your package. There have been some addeds. So there is a second delegation from Mr. Hank Weavers, and under 5, and under correspondence 11, there's 2 more items to add to the 1 item that we had in the package. So there's additions to number 5 and number 11. And do we have to approve the addendum as well, or just approve with the addendum? So we need to approve, I need a mover and the seconder for the agenda, including the addendum. Moved by Councillor Neal. Need a seconder, second by Councillor Candon. So again, that's including 5A and B, and 11 has 3 parts to it now. Okay, all those in favor? And that carries. So now we're doing the minutes, which has been distributed. Minutes from our December meeting. Member that was present there, and I believe there were 5 of us, so one of those 5 get to move the minutes. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Councillor Candon, that the minutes from December 13th be received and adopted. Are there any errors or omissions to these minutes? Seeing none, we will vote on accepting the minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. And moving on to number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Number 5 is delegations. There are 2 delegations today. First, I will welcome Mr. Lawrence Gray, P.Eng. He will speak to the committee in regards to a proposal for public transit in the city of Kingston. I believe he has a digital presentation that is accompanied by a folder with the heading G5 Technologies. So you can follow along here or along the screen. It's the exact same presentation. And once you're ready to go, you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to come and make this presentation tonight and share some thoughts on Kingston's transportation. My name is Lawrence Gray, as you already know, and I'm the Vice President of Engineering for G5 Technologies. And as you can see, we have been, as you can see from the slides, we've been Kingston-based for 40 years. Our people who've been working with us for G5 Technologies with a variety of projects in the past few years from North America, Europe, and the Far East. And we'd like to bring that experience to Kingston. Although we've been involved in a variety of industries, our primary focus has been the transportation sector. And with our knowledge of transportation and our local backgrounds, we'd like to discuss our vision for the future of transportation for the city we all call home. We believe we have an affordable, fully integrated environmental green transit system solution that provides the population as well as visitors is possible, and it's required, and can support city growth, downtown revitalization, attract new businesses and events, and by providing a practical solution to downtown commute and the ongoing automobile parking issues that we have downtown, and access all the major activity sites. The solution can be designed to complement Kingston's unique character and provide full accessibility to all and to the Greater Kingston main centres of activity and a feeder to special events. We see this as an opportunity to put Kingston in the forefront of North American cities for an integrated transportation solution. Quite simply, our vision allows Kingston to implement a transportation system that provides superior service and comfort levels linking the central business core and major activity sites along with the dormitory areas and the other transportation modes at an affordable capital cost and then importantly, an affordable operational cost, which the city will have to carry once the system is built. This is achieved through the implementation of a fully automated main transportation artery with feeder routes employing complementary transportation modes and links to ferries, trains and bus termini, and the main aspects of this integrated transportation are highlighted on this slide. This simple schematic outlines our initial thoughts of a main artery for the system, the integrated solution that connects the main dormitory areas to the west and the east with the central core and the main activity centres. Again, this simplified bubble diagram notes the connection modes of these activity centres to the main artery proposal. And then this next slide shows the core district. And in this slide, we've attempted to ascertain the number of persons active regularly at these sites. So for instance, St. Lawrence College and KPH, 8,000 people. Queen's University, 36,000. The Downtown Business Course, 6,000 to 8,000, and so on. This all adds up to approximately just over 50,000 people active daily in this core district, and they all have to get here somehow. This next slide shows in more detail some solutions for main arteries that are in operation elsewhere that might be considered for the Greater Kingston transportation mode. They include light rail transit, automated light rail transit. While some of these operational examples are fully comparable to Kingston, are not fully comparable to Kingston, each has some features in place today that can be utilised to create a main artery and a made in Kingston solution. These cities are in the range of 1.75 million to 220,000 people. So while no two large projects of this scale are the same, there are a number of common steps that need to be undertaken to successfully implement a transportation initiative that are highlighted here on this slide. And they include your detailed business plans, your route definitions, your major players, and transit time studies, operational service plans, etc. And then they lead to the actual installation and implementation phase. We believe that in order to implement this or any project on time and within budget, a preliminary evaluation phase must be taken to define at a high level the costs, operational and capital costs, and the benefits of the initiative and the project. In order to do a proper high-level, rapid, all-encompassing initiative must be undertaken to gather enough accurate information to allow an informed and rational go, no-go decision to be made with the information gathered and presented at a conclusion of this preliminary phase. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to share our ideas with you this evening, and hopefully you've been able to appreciate a vision that G5 Technologies and its staff have for the future of transportation in our city. For your information, we have one additional slide at the rear of the pack handed out prior to the meeting and highlights the breadth of our transportation experience. Unless there are any questions now, I will end my presentation at this point, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So at this point, questions from members of the committee are in order. Yes, Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question would be, are there other cities that have done this from scratch? Because basically what you'd be talking about is a complete rebuild of a number of cities or a number of streets in the city of Kingston if we decided to pursue this. Are there other cities that have decided?
In Ontario, Waterloo, Kitchener, Cambridge are a city that are currently doing it.
So are they fairly recent ones then, or
They're in the middle of construction right now.
of brand new systems?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Councillor Neal?
If we were looking at, as I'm sure we would, if this were to happen, at a phase-in process, I don't see any kind of projected numbers in your presentation. And I know it would just be a ballpark, but could you ballpark what the core and west end, core and east Kingston, say from CFB Kingston to St. Lawrence College, that kind of an infrastructure, any concept of what that cost might be?
Well, I couldn't give you a number right now. Reasons being is you have to choose the technology you want to use, i.e. the type of equipment you're going to use. You have to choose the route alignments that you're going to use. And you have to choose sites for stations, sites for a maintenance base, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very site dependent. But what I can tell you is that just this last year in Vancouver, they opened an extension to their system, which was 11 kilometers of double track called the Evergreen Line, and it was a $1.3 billion contract let to the construction companies, and including the vehicles and the control systems and everything else. So it works out to be about $130 million per kilometer of double track, fully automated. That would be and that includes a lot of tunneling, bridges, and so on. So it's very, very site dependent on what it is.
Thank you.
So I saw Councillor Hutchison.
A couple of questions. First one is, in your potential main artery map, I don't see Princess Street. And yet, that is the busiest route we've got. No, Princess Street out to Gardeners Road. So I'm just curious how this scheme would work.
Well, there are no streets listed at all, anywhere, first of all. Secondly, it's based upon what I call activity centers, so where people actually want to go and do stuff. I'm sure I've missed out a whole bunch of activity centers that everybody can think of that I've not thought of, but that will be in the study when you do a study to figure out where people actually want to go and how they want to get there. If you want to utilize a streetscape in order to do a system of this nature, then maybe Princess Street is an option. Maybe Front Road or King Street, or Front Road's an option. I mean, there's a whole Bath Road may be an option. So I don't think at this stage you can choose a street to operate. I think what you need to understand is that people want to get to where they want to go on a daily basis, and also to large activity centres, whether that's Queen's University or KGH or Fort Henry or the K-Rock Centre.
What I note is that the examples you give are population centers that are at least almost twice our size at the smallest one, which is Graz, Austria.
Right.
We've got it down here as 220,000 population. And at the most populous time, we're more like maybe 149 or something of that sort, thousand. So I'd like to know more about what kind of system has been established in Graz.
Graz is a very old Austrian city. It has a LRT type operation that's street running, and but that's historically the way they've had it running. And as I said earlier, these comparable systems have features that would help Kingston. I would not saying it should be exactly the same type of system, but I'm saying they have features. One of the features that Graz has, which drew my interest, was the fact that in their main square, their main Platz, they've eliminated all cars, and only the LRT vehicles pass through their main square. And it's totally pedestrian orientated and LRT orientated. Similarly, that's been done by Calgary in the C train. And if you look at the map on that slide, you will see that the two lines coincide. Well, that's running down one street in the middle of Calgary, which again is carless. There's no cars on it at all. It actually runs with buses at the same time, but that's all. There's no taxis, no cars, no bikes, no motorbikes, nothing other than the LRT and the buses. So those are the comparable features of these systems that I think are of interest to what we could do in Kingston. And I talk about matching Kingston's unique character, and I think something of a transportation hub, if you like, in the downtown core would be something similar to the Calgary-Graz solutions. Could be.
Would it be fair to say that Graz is more, is denser than Kingston as a whole,
Not really,
as a whole entity?
no.
You don't
It's
think
very,
so?
it's very similar in the fact that it's got a river system running through the middle, so it's divided. And consequently, there are bridges. I mean, we have two rivers surrounding the city. So we have bridges that cross them. And those bridges are choke points in certain times of the day. Well, Graz has gone to great lengths to separate their transit solutions in order to make sure that their LRT system runs quickly across those connections. That's something that we could do.
So rather than the cost of a particular system, what's the likely cost of the initial feasibility study?
I have no idea. I haven't come prepared to give a quotation, sorry.
So you couldn't tell us what the cost of the Graz solution was? For the initial study that you cite would be necessary in your presentation?
I couldn't tell you that either. I'm sorry. I was in Graz twice working with Siemens Transportation, and they showed me their system that they operated, and that's where I got all the information from. I have no idea about their preliminary studies at all. But I think let me put this another way. I think a preliminary study could be conducted in 3 months.
So the preliminary study would take 3 months, but you don't know, you don't have an idea of the cost?
No, I don't. Not right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and unfortunately, we can't ask staff that question because staff wasn't making the presentation, but it's a good question. Councillor Camden.
Thank you, and through you. The question I have is related to the benefit related to investing in something like this. I feel like in Waterloo, they were investing in something like this based on increase in demand. So their economy was growing exponentially. They're one of the top 10 countries in the world, according to The Economist, to live in. And they needed people to come to Toronto based on their economy growing. Our economy is stable, but growing at a very small rate. What would be the benefit of a city that seems to be not booming to invest in something like this? What comes first? Are we putting the cart before the horse? Should we wait till the Kingston economy starts to grow at a more rapid rate to invest in something like this? Or would investing in something like this allow our economy to grow at a higher rate?
I think if you wait until the economy grows, I think you'll be waiting a very long time. I think a system like this attracts investment, attracts a lot of businesses because people can operate their family life with half the automobiles. So, for instance, if you have a two-car family, which most families do these days, because we only use roads, you can operate with one car, and the person who goes to work on a regular basis can use this system. I mean, that's a personal initiative, but on the business side, I think there certainly would be attractions to higher density living at locations close to the stations. It wouldn't have to be downtown. In fact, downtown would be extended to Pittsburgh Township to the West End, because you pop on one of these systems and you could be downtown in 12, 15 minutes, and you don't have to park a car. So there's a lot of business investment around one of these systems. In Vancouver, where they operate the system, they encourage high-rise, high-density in the dormitory areas around the stations, so that people will use it and will get benefit from it. So certainly it does bring investment in from the point of view of property investment, and it brings investment in from the point of view that Kingston becomes a lower cost of living city, but with the better style of city. I mean, Kingston has a great lifestyle. That's why I live here. And people will get attracted to that, especially if they have an ease of getting around the city. So I think you can't wait for companies to invest. I think you have to, well, we as a community have to invest in ourselves before we can attract these type of larger corporations and investment companies. I mean, we have one of the biggest investment companies in Kingston right here. It's called Homestead Land Holdings. And they are all over Canada, and they invest in these types of buildings that are around these stations. That's what they do. They would love it. You know? So would the people that were using it.
I have a question. So, and it's sort of related to all of the questions we've had so far. To me, it is very preliminary. You've come with this presentation to this committee because it's part of our mandate, but I think we need a way to relate it to what we know we already have. And just the fact that you're presenting this, I'm drawing a potential link, and you can confirm this, because as Councillor Cannon said, our economy is not growing currently by leaps and bounds, but however, our transit use is, right? So how does this relate to our current system of diesel buses and the express buses, which Councillor Hutchison mentioned with the Princess Street corridor? So how does that relate to our current system of diesel buses? Like, where does this fit into the conversation?
Well, this, as I've mentioned in the presentation, this is a main artery type of technology. So it would be what we call the backbone of the system, and it would run east-west right through the city. And then you would use the existing infrastructure we've got with the buses and the access bus and all these other types of systems to feed into it so that people can get to the activity centers they need to go to. So for instance, you would still need express buses because this is a main artery. It doesn't go way north, and there's going to be parts of the West End not served by it. So people want to get downtown, want to get to their destination as quickly as possible. So it would be a matter of rerouting some of the express buses in order to feed into the system so people could travel much quicker. And that could be done with all the other routes as well that interconnect with it. And also, it would be like almost like a fish skeleton, if you like. This being the main spine, and then the ribs being where the other roots go up Sydenham Street, up whatever street you want to say. But
So what we know about the express buses is that they are the main cause for our rapid growth in transit use, is the express buses. That was the hope when they were presented, and they're exceeding expectations. I think we can agree on about how quickly they're being adopted by people. And I know that for myself, selling my car, I would not have taken that step if it hadn't been for the express buses, which I now use. But what I'm getting at is, are there limitations to the current system with using the street infrastructure and having the buses in traffic that this system is superior to?
well, this system would be what I call a dedicated right-of-way, so it wouldn't be sharing with the automobile and bus traffic. So it would be grade separated. So it would either be at the side, or it would be above, or maybe below, depending on the local conditions.
Sorry, just walk me. I think I know what you mean, but so when it's separated like that, what is the advantage?
The advantage is that it doesn't have to wait for traffic lights. It doesn't have to wait for people turning. It doesn't have to wait. It sets its own schedule, and it can run up to an average speed, including station stops, up to 40, 43 kilometers per hour. That's what they do in Vancouver. That's what they do in Kuala Lumpur, where they run these as well. So there's significant advantages to separating this route from the normal automobile traffic, because what it will do is it will actually remove some of the automobile traffic from the main arteries like Princess Street, Bath Road, and Highway 2, and it will then free up some space for those other cars. So the traffic will be reduced on those roads because the populace will be travelling on a dedicated right-of-way at a greater speed, and that's the attraction that the express buses have made to Kingston. It is that people can get downtown or get to where they want to go quicker.
So are you saying it would be quicker than the express bus system that we currently have?
Correct.
And would also further reduce parking demand? I think you said that earlier.
There is no parking requirements.
Right. Well, I'm not going to ask.
I should rephrase it, in the downtown core.
Right.
There's obviously parking requirements at the terminus and the termini at either end, or wherever the dormitory area activity centres are.
I'm finding this fascinating, and I have a bunch more questions, but I'm going to go around. If anyone else has any more, it's possible this subject is bigger than what we have time for at committee, but if you guys want to ask any other questions here, I will intend it. Yes, Councillor Schell.
Thank you. Just one, in any of the places that you know of that have this, is it free to ride, or is there a cost involved for the passengers?
In certain cities, they offer a free ride in the downtown area. So, for instance, from Queens to the K-Rock Centre would be free. But correct. Right. Yeah, but the whole thing free? No. No, that's all right.
Okay. And sorry, one last question that we haven't covered, and I'm only asking this because I remember you from the Bombardier soccer team. Do you have a connection with I know they make light rail carriages. Do you have any connection with that company?
Not now. I haven't worked for Bombardier since 1989. That's when I left. Well, it wasn't Bombardier then, it was UTDC at the time, or SNC Lavalin. So I left there in '89 after we'd installed the Expo line in Vancouver, the Detroit People Mover, and the Scarborough RT system in Toronto, and they were all up and running. And I was the Director of Engineering Design at the time. But since then, I've been an independent engineering person, consultant, and I've been running my own small company, 8 to 12 people.
And you were involved with the Vancouver project, I think you mentioned.
Yes, from 82 to 86 when they had the Expo 86. And following on 3 more years until I left UTDC in Millhaven.
Okay, well, seeing no further questions from the committee, thank you very much for that thought-provoking presentation.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Up next, we have another delegation from Mr. Hank Weavers. He wants to speak to the committee regarding a proposal for Station Road railway crossing. And I believe there is in the addeds, there is a submission, a one-page submission on the second page of the addeds. That includes a map.
Ladies, gentlemen, chairman, members of the public, this is just a suggestion that I would like to bring to you for consideration. It's an idea that somebody from Toronto presented to me when we talked about the noise of the train whistles that come by the station road level crossing, and a little bit further on the level crossing at the John F. Scott Road. They are about a minute apart. At each crossing, every train will whistle 4 big blasts, 2 long ones, then a short one, and then a very long one. There are consequences if you close the level railroad crossing, because about 6 houses, I think it's 6 houses that will be on the east side of the railroad crossing will have a more difficult access to Kingston Mills because they have to go via Highway 15 and then Kingston Mills Road. On the other hand, in the long-term plan, when the bridge across the Katrakvi is built, the Ministry of Transportation will propose to declare Station Road a dead-end road anyway, so it will be a dead end at Highway 15. Our idea is to basically make it into 2 dead-end sections, with one has access to Highway 15, the other has access to Kingston Mills Road. The train whistle sounds are overwhelming. Some people don't hear them anymore, but there are thousands of families in a corridor about 2 kilometers on each side who easily hear it. Sometimes when the climatic conditions are in a certain way, it looks like the train will come through our bedroom, and we are more than 2.5 kilometers away from the railway crossing on the other side of Colonel Bailey. There are 44 freight trains coming currently through over that railroad. And these freight trains, there can be more, can be less, depends on market requirements. But with the oil, transportation, all that, the expectation is there will be more. These 44 trains are what it currently is according to CN. There are 30 passenger trains, and that might triple according to the mayor of Kingston when Kingston becomes possibly an important network or important connection for high-speed rails, etc. The mayor was talking about it as a rural advisory committee meeting, as a rural public meeting 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So there are a total of 70 trains, 7 days a week, day and night, year-round. They are blast 4 times per train. That's almost 300 blasts per day. Every 20 minutes a train passes. And if you take John F. Scott Road as well, then you basically have 600 of these blasts. Noise pollution affects 11 families on Station Road, thousands in the 4-kilometer plus corridor, and visitors and boaters at Kingston Mills, and on Colonel Bailey, part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Proposal is to close the level railway crossing at Station Road, making it basically a dead-end road on both sides. that would no longer, for CN, would no longer be, in my opinion at least, a crossing, and so they don't need to whistle. We have seen a consultant report about 3-4 years ago for the silencing the whistles in the Collins Bay corridor. That was very expensive, but this would be just one rural crossing. I admit that people, again, on the east side of the crossing would have to access Kingston Mills via Highway 15. Long-term Highway 15 reconstruction north of 401, which is not to be confused with the current construction that will begin soon, that doesn't affect Highway 15 north of 401. But this is a longer term that the Ministry of Transportation has planned, and that might be tied in with the bridge crossing, so that is probably, whatever, 5 or 10 years down the road. Not waiting for that would be my suggestion, and we would hope that the proposal, or at least the idea of looking at the possibility of closing the crossing, would be received positively by the committee. There are 2 families or 2 persons here also from that neighborhood who are opposed to this idea. They want to have access to Kingston Mills, and of course they are here to answer questions if you have any questions. There are 2 other families that I have direct contact with that are in favor of it, and there are members of the Rural Advisory Committee who live on the Aragon Road who are also in favor of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this point, questions from members of the committee are in order. Mr. Hutchinson?
Does Station Road have any emergency status
I don't know.
for access?
I don't know. I hope that some council members know that, or maybe members of the police know that, or, but it would be easily to find out. It's a very, if it is an road, access road or a road for emergencies, they should fix up the crossing, because if you go over there, the patients might go through the roof if there is a patient in an ambulance. The maintenance of that crossing is just atrocious. So, but I don't know if it is a medical, if it is, then that same consideration will be a consideration when the ministry will make it a dead-end road at Highway 15.
Are you aware that the city looked at the train whistles quite extensively about 2 or 3 years ago? Did you follow that?
Yeah, I mentioned that. I mentioned it just a minute ago. And
Okay.
at that time, the costs were exorbitant, about 3 to 5 million, just to make all the safety fences and whatever requirements are needed along the track to make that feasible for the Collins Bay area. But this is totally different, because the level crossing is in a rural area. There are a total of 11 families involved on both sides of the crossing. And the road itself is a connection between Highway 15 and Kingston Mills. So, but otherwise, it would be, as far as I'm concerned, but I'm a citizen with some engineering background, but it would be costing next to nothing to close that crossing. I don't know what the regulations are from CN and how that interacts with city regulations, but I would say, I would suggest that, in my opinion, the cost would be minimal.
Councillor Schell.
Thank you. I must admit, I wish the map were bigger, because I'm confused at the railway crossings. I know John F. Scott Road, and I know the Middle Road because we drive out there all the time, but I can't relate it to the map. So I am confused about what you're talking about as an actual spot
Right.
for closing
the
something.
crossing on the left, that is the station road. It goes, when you come off Highway 15, go off 401, go on Highway 15. Mm-hmm. It's the first exit to the left. It's almost immediately after the 401.
Oh, okay, I see
go
what you mean.
Then you go steeply down a hill. You come to a pretty crappy railroad crossing that is not very safe, actually, for the traffic to go over it. If you talk about
There are many that you slow down to 10.
it's pretty
to
damaged.
cross.
and the maintenance is minimal. But anyway, then you come onto Kingston Mills Road, you go left to Kingston Mills.
So this road, even though the map looks like it doesn't join Kingston Mills Road, it does?
Well, it doesn't look like it, but it's a road that connects with Kingston Mills Road, yes.
Okay,
It's
well,
just a rural, it's basically a rural road that is not even maybe 18 feet wide, and it connects between Highway 15 and Kingston Mills Road.
I see. Yes, we have been through train whistles before. I do understand why you would propose it as an idea, but I also understand why neighbors would complain, because it would add to their travel time if we cut a road in half.
Yeah, you should
in effect.
realize though that the distances are not great. I mean, the distance between Highway 50 and Kingston Mills Road is probably a couple of 100 meters. And if you go, if that gets closed at the railway crossing, you have to go around. It's probably total kilometer and a half.
Yes, but as councillors, we get to hear from lots of people, and Napier Street closing was going to cause problems. So it becomes a question of scale and how you feel about things. So this would only be a start if we even considered it of a very long process to continue, because you can't just stop people's access without a huge public consultation.
Okay,
But it's an idea that
I just wanted to say that safety would be greatly increased too, because the road would basically then not be traveled anymore. It would be only used by 5 families on one side and 6 families on the other side.
still families that want to
Yes,
access.
it's just
yeah.
an idea that I'm willing to suggest. I have spent some time exploring it, and I think it's a pretty good idea.
Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt, but it's questions only, not meant to turn to a debate with the presenter. So as long as you're not doing that, Councillor Neal, go ahead.
I think I can manage that. A question. I know that there were some considerations to mitigate the level of noise and that in the West End. Are you aware of there was an engineering report. CN was willing to go a little way, but for their safety reasons, they refused to eliminate the whistles. Do you have a copy of that report, or perhaps you would?
Yeah, I looked in that report, and I thought that the consultants advised council at the time that it was too costly to do anything. As I said, the cost for this would be minimal. There might be other ways of convincing CN that there is no need to blast all these whistle sounds for 5 or 11 families that are totally aware of what the local situation is. If it becomes a dead-end road at Highway 15, as the Ministry of Transportation proposes, should you have thousands and hundreds of people and thousands of people and tourists in a corridor, as I said, as wide as more than 2 kilometers on both sides, listening to all that noise just because you have a total of 11 families crossing occasionally or maybe daily the railway, but thoroughly aware of what the consequences are if the barriers are down, because you have barriers there as well. So I don't know what CN would feel they can do if they could safely not blast their whistles. We are not here to stop the trains. I'm just here with the support of some people to stop the noise pollution.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question as devil's advocate. It's a question that was asked of us when we were debating the whole issue of whistles in the West End. Those trains and those tracks have been there for centuries. When people built their houses, there were whistles. Why now should we turn off the whistles?
Okay, good. That's a very good question. And I had it in my mind to bring that up and say, people react and say, okay, the trains have been there since Confederation. And people have been building along the tracks and have built houses everywhere, and now they complain about the noise. If you look to the future, I won't hear them in another 10 years. I won't hear them anymore. But if you look to the future, and we get a tripling of the passenger trains, and we are looking at rapid rail transport, and we get maybe a doubling of the freight trains, who knows? Because the pipelines from west to east will be slow coming too, then I think you should consider in a modern society, not refer back to what was there 150 years, but see how you can accommodate the future by making it a little bit less noisy and a little bit less pollution, because it's not only pollution in the air, it's also noise pollution and light pollution and everything else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? I'm just going to ask a question by way of summary. So, and clarification. So I think you said that the Ministry of Transportation of the province is proposing cutting off Station Road from Highway 15 right at the southern tip of Station Road. In other words, eliminating the entrance to Station Road from Highway 15. So cutting the link there, which would be right beside Highway 15. And you're proposing almost the same thing, except you're saying if you're going to cut that link and make it a dead-end road, cut it at the railway crossing so you can also eliminate the train whistles. Is that correct?
So there will be a dead-end crescent, a little bit of a round terminal at Highway 50 and station. So the families that live there have all to go on Station Road to Kingston Mills Road to go anywhere. And that will be tied in with the construction, possibly construction of the third crossing and traffic patterns that you have on Highway 15 that will be in the future different from what it is now.
So Station Road will be a dead-end road accessible only from Kingston Mills and not from Highway 15?
I don't know if I can get a pointer on here, but may I understand it? Are you confused or are you asking Highway 15 Station Road? That will be a dead end, so people cannot turn left from Highway 15 on Station Road under the proposal of the ministry in the future.
Could you turn right off of Highway 15 coming south? Could you turn right onto Station Road?
No, it will be complete closure. Maybe I misunderstand you, but the Station Road will be cut off at Highway 15, and nobody can go from Station Road onto Highway 15.
Right. So you're proposing instead to make that cut at the railway track and access Station Road from Highway 15 on one side and from Kingston Mills on the other side and sever it at the railway crossing. So a slight difference. Okay.
If I understand you correctly, I can affirm that.
What I'm saying is that the Ministry of Transportation is already suggesting that we cut the access to Station Road off, and you're saying cut it off at the railway track instead of at Highway 15. Yes. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question myself, Mr. Chairman?
No, at this point, it's members of the committee asking you questions.
that's
Did you have one, Councillor Hutchison?
Okay, that answer just occasioned considerable confusion right here. Okay, so your claim is that the ministry is contemplating cutting off Station Road right where it joins Highway 15. So on the map, it says Highway 15 and 401 is printed there. And please stand in front of the mics, please. In front of the mics, please. So we can hear you. So we can hear you. So we're going up 15. That's Station Road right there on the left. It's the closest road to 401.
Yes, it's the
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to cut it off there. So if you cut it off where the RRX is there on the left, what are the people on that piece of road going to do?
Oh, no, okay, well, of course. So first of all, what the Ministry of Transportation is proposing is tied in with the third crossing. You know maybe better than I do, but the third crossing is probably 8 to 10 years away from now. So if we were to cut off the railway crossing, then of course the Ministry of Transportation cannot cut off the station road from Highway 15. If you live along Highway 15, you need an access to Highway 50 anyway. So these 6 families would basically have a combined driveway, private access to Highway 15.
But if we don't do what you say, they can go out to Kingston Mills Road.
If
They go out.
Okay, I understand your question, Councillor Hutchison. It's argumentative. You already know the answer. The answer
No,
is...
I don't know the answer.
The answer he gave was he is suggesting they cut the link at the railway instead of at Highway 15.
Yeah.
You obviously can't do both.
Yeah,
Oh, so he thinks they'll take that into account.
yes.
But don't you think that the Ministry of Transportation simply doesn't want people accessing Highway 15 at that point? So why would they allow what you're suggesting?
I don't understand. Can you say that, Mr.
And
Chairman?
that's not a real question. That's a rhetorical question.
It was a question.
Councillor Hutchison, you're basically arguing with the presenter saying that his idea doesn't make sense. Either way, thank you very much. If you're not going to ask a real question of the presenter, then I will move on to someone else.
No, I've got no question.
Councillor Camden, do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Weavers. Next up on the agenda is...
Thank you.
There are no briefings, is business. There's 2 items of business. The terms of reference for Kingston's Road Safety Plan Vision Zero. It was accompanied by a report, and I believe staff will introduce it, and then there is a recommendation for us to discuss.
Through you, Mr. Chair, what you have in this report this evening is a terms of reference for a scope of work for a road safety plan. And if you recall back in April, Council directed us to come back to this committee with the terms of reference for a plan. And this was instead of a red light camera program, that we would look at more of a strategic overall plan. And so the ultimate goal of a Vision Zero road safety plan is to work toward the elimination of all fatal and serious injuries. And the scope of our work even takes that one step further, and we would be looking to eliminating any type of collision with vulnerable users such as pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. And through the 5 E's of road safety, engineering, education, enforcement, evaluation, and engagement, the plan would identify all the factors that contribute to the collisions in Kingston and recommend effective safety measures, new guidelines, policies, procedures, and programs, and the use of technology. And the plan would provide short, medium, and long-term prioritized plans with specific action items over a 20-year period, and then develop annual targets that would reflect a progressive reduction toward zero fatalities and zero injuries and zero collisions of any sort with the vulnerable users.
Thank you. So as you'll see here, Councillor Hutchison, please direct your comments to the committee rather than just privately on the side. We have here a recommendation. Before we get to it, can have questions from members of the committee and comments and questions from members of the public. First, committee, any questions to staff about the report? Neil.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the report and the information that's gone into it. I guess when the whole discussion and debate took place, I know that there was a frustration expressed when we found out, or we learned that there were really only 4 dedicated traffic officers in the force. And I understand that that doesn't mean there's only 4 cars that are looking at traffic violations, but there were only 4 that were at the time that were dedicated exclusively for that. And there was some discussion and debate that night with the chief, and an expression, and I've shared this with the chief personally as well, a willingness to encourage an increase in that complement of traffic officers. And I've said to the chief, a modest increase in your budget in order to enable that action, I personally could support. But I'm just wondering, are those numbers still accurate today? Or is there currently any increased complement for traffic officers?
If you don't mind, go ahead, answer on behalf of Kingston Police. Hit it one more time. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. My name is Greg Smith. I'm in the traffic unit. I was there on that evening to assist the chief. Currently, I think we have 5 dedicated traffic safety officers. It's our hope that through our chief, that we add to those numbers in order to satisfy our business plan, because as everyone is well aware, obviously one of the main community concerns for years is traffic safety. So we are hoping that we'll add 1 or 2 in the coming year, but again, that's to be seen, so that we can offer additional support on the road to our frontline officers.
Thank you, Constable Smith. Any other questions from members of the committee? Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'm really pleased to see the collision comparables for the City of Kingston. That's really encouraging. One of the problems I felt as a councillor during the whole red light camera debate was councillors have to look for information, and I wonder if part of the plan could include on regular city updates how we're doing with collisions, how we're doing with traffic calming, sort of regular reports to keep councillors updated, so that we do get a good idea of understanding the problems that we encounter on the streets. When we get complaints from the public, it helps if councillors sort of can know what they're talking about in terms of how safe the city is, why stop signs, too many stop signs are not a good idea. What I'm leading to is sort of a way of doing public education, councillor education on the need for traffic safety. In that, I guess you noticed with the red light camera discussion, it veered off into a lot of areas so that people like me that really wanted them, it died. So it's to do with councillor education, and if that could be part of the plan for the entire idea of safety improvements in the city. It's probably a yes or no answer, but thought I'd put it out there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, one of the deliverables of the road safety plan would be a framework that would help us determine what we could put in an annual report. So in it, we could put a number of collisions overall, pedestrians, cyclists, vehicles. As part of that, we could even add more information with respect to effectiveness of our traffic calming and our monitoring and how we are progressing on an annual basis with all of these safety measures that we're implementing.
That would be fabulous, so that we could detect the patterns and know as councillors how alert to be, how much to push, and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may miss, I only got this yesterday because they didn't put it in my cupboard. Okay. And when I went looking for it last night, they produced one. So I'm not sure if the answer to this is in here or not. My question is, how successful are these proposals in other cities? Like, do they have a track record of actually, I know we do all these different aspects where we're trying to increase safety and all that, and I'm fine with that. But this is $200,000 for a comprehensive approach. which might be justifiable, but before you can decide on that is you want to have some idea what the incremental advantages are. Just like the police would say to themselves, okay, we're going to give you, one more officer. I don't know that they'd set quotas, but I doubt that. But, what are we going to get back for that? Similarly for the traffic engineers, right? Is it going to pay? Like, it's just as the same way you advise us sometimes, it doesn't, we can do this, but it's probably not going to work, right? Like T-junction stop signs, stuff like that.
Ms. Green?
Many of the road safety plans in Ontario are relatively new. So we've all heard a lot about the Toronto plan that was just released. London finished one a few years ago. Ottawa, Peel's doing one. The region of Durham is just starting one. So it does take time to see the actual impacts of some of the measures that have been implemented. I wish I had brought the Edmonton plan with me, but we've read that one. And so the Edmonton one is the Vision Zero, and that's been around for a while. And so there certainly are measurable improvements that they can see on an annual basis, and they actually created targets. And they could see those collisions going down over time. So the ultimate goal, of course, would be to reach zero. And some say, well, that's aspirational, we'll never meet that. But what we're saying is any number of collisions isn't acceptable. And we would like to set annual targets to say, here's a toolbox that we're going to choose from and pick certain target areas. For example, I know Toronto's doing a lot of work on one of their target areas, which is senior pedestrians. So they're installing better lighting, better pedestrian crossings for them, special signs for senior pedestrians. So they're going to be able to get measurable results with respect to the number of collisions that they have with seniors on an annual basis, and it's a really high number. And so that's why in their road safety plan, that consultant was able to pick out that the number of collisions with seniors was disproportionately high. So they came up with measures to target that one particular area, and I think we will see over time those collisions going down.
And when we implement this, would we tailor it to our experience, both the police and engineering, to your experience? Like, we have more problems with seniors than, 6 out of 10 other cities or something, or 8 out of 10 cities, or, I'm sure we have our own peculiarities. Would we be asking in the RFP that people address those particular things more so than something else?
So as part of the scope of work, the consultant would be looking at the entire collision database since 2005. So we have those all electronically. And they would be determining what types of collision happen where. And they would be mapping citywide. So we would see across the city exactly where any pedestrian collision occurred, a cyclist collision, motor vehicle collision. And then they would be determining, well, what were the contributing factors? Why did those collisions happen? And so based on that, we've asked them to come up with 6 focus areas. So focus areas could be speeding, aggressive driving, school zone safety, senior pedestrians. So there's all types of areas that we would want the consultant to focus on based on what they're seeing here in Kingston.
Okay, we're not at statements yet, right?
No, and I'm going to limit everyone to 2 questions at a time for the first round, and I'll come back for a second round if needed. Councillor Neal?
Yes, I'm glad you brought up the focus on cyclists and pedestrians, because aggressive drivers and the figures in your report definitely point to the fact that we have lower fatalities and lower injuries per capita than either Ontario or the country do. But I think in urban areas, correct me if I'm wrong, but the very serious accidents, the life-threatening accidents often are with pedestrians and cyclists. Rather than, we don't drive at great speeds in the city. A car collides with a car. A modern car protects us, but that isn't the case with cyclists and pedestrians. Could you comment on that and how that aspect of it might be addressed?
Right.
Ms. Green?
We were just reviewing what we believed your question was, but I think the focus of the question is our vulnerable road users versus our vehicle-to-vehicle collisions. And so as part of our proposal, we've even made it more conservative than the other plans, in that the other plans are saying, well, we want to eliminate all collisions, all fatals, and all serious injury collisions. Our plan goes a step further, and we're saying we want to eliminate any collision of any type with a vulnerable user, such as a pedestrian, a cyclist, or even a motorcyclist.
Yeah, I understand the point of your question. And to get back to what Councillor Shell was saying, the red light camera debate, the red light camera system is designed to reduce collisions at intersections between vehicles, by vehicles running red lights. And it would also reduce with people, but the system is based on the high number of vehicle-to-vehicle collisions. Anyways, I have a question of my own. Actually, I have two questions. One is on the just one aspect of the report, the Road Safety Advisory Group. So specifically, and if I understand this, you're recommending, as part of the report, and I take it that would be in the included in the recommendation, because the recommendation itself says, terms of reference, well, maybe you can clarify this. The heading under Road Safety Advisory Group, first of all, are you indeed recommending that we create a new advisory group or a type of committee? And are you recommending that we have members of all the organizations listed in your report? There's 12, I believe, in your list, and it says is not limited to. And would you be recommending technical advisors from all of those organizations? So would it be a type of group which has a dozen technical representatives? And are you recommending that we create that group?
So as part of the report tonight, we're not asking council to approve these suggestions for our technical advisory group. We're asking for this to be considered in the same way that we handled the active transportation master plan, in that once the consultant initiated that study, we worked with that consultant to come up with a technical advisory group. And so what this list is merely a likely list of suggestions of when we started working with the consultant of who would be on this advisory group for the road safety plan. And then this group would not only work with us during this plan, but we could continue to work with them on an ongoing basis.
Okay, I'm going to address that with my comments when that comes up, because I believe that we have a big problem in the bureaucracy about creating committees from reports such as this, and the people that sit on the committees is ourselves, and I think that we should have more control over what committees we strike. But we'll get to that later. My other question had to do with the place of the red light camera in the recommendation, and I think you answered it before we started, but I'll ask it here in open session. So where would that fit into the work that you would get the consultant to do?
So with respect to red light cameras, what we see happening with these other road safety plans and Vision Zero plans is under focus areas related to aggressive driving or intersection safety, they come up with a toolbox of measures that can be used to increase safety. And technology would be one of those tools. And then to be specific, a red light camera would be one of those suggestions. So if the road safety plan were to suggest that red light cameras could be used at intersections to reduce aggressive driving, it wouldn't be a recommendation So there would be nothing that would require us to install red light cameras, but we could look at the document and we could see lists of all these different tools under all these focus areas. So that would just merely be one of those tools.
Okay, so it might be mentioned as an option for us to consider, but not as a recommendation necessarily. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Yes, Councillor Schell.
Just to clarify, when I read this, it seems to say that the successful consultant is the person who will use the committee, will be helped and aided by a committee created by the City of Kingston. So this isn't, you're not talking about creating a new road safety advisory group for the city, but it would be created for the term of the contract and not an ongoing committee. Is that correct? Like we've done for others, waterfront master plan, that sort of thing.
That's correct. So the intent of this road safety advisory group was to facilitate the road safety plan. So very similar to what we're doing with the active transportation master plan.
Thank you for clarifying that. So that puts me at ease if it's a temporary working group that would advise only this consultant's work and not a permanent creation of a new committee that we would have to sit on. Thank you. Councillor Neal, you have another question.
Yes, I do. Very quickly. I really like the stakeholders list. I just did a double take on that to make sure that groups like the Accessibility Advisory Committee, like Active Transportation, are represented on there, and they are. The only puzzle that I had, and perhaps somebody can explain this to me, Ontario Provincial Police do not patrol within the city and are not an active force in our city. I would think that 2 officers from city police on this committee might be more value added than having an OPP, seeking an OPP representative. Perhaps somebody can address why OPP are listed here.
Whoever wants to answer that question is free to answer it.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, albeit within the normal guise of police work, we're responding to the majority, or if not all, police calls. However, enforcement on some of the roadways do in fact lie in the hands of the OPP. So for instance, Highway 15, north of the 401, Highway 33, west of Collins Bay Road, I believe. And I mean, to a lesser extent, obviously the 401 highway, which cuts right through the middle of our city. So those, if somebody calls 911 in a house off to the side, we respond to that. But if there's a collision, it's the responsibility of the OPP to take responsibility for that.
We learn something new every day. So provincial highways are still patrolled by the OPP. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just for context, the wording, this is not an exhaustive list, nor is it an exclusive list. Like some of these technical groups that you've mentioned may or may not be part of the advisory group when the consultant would set it up. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's not a confirmed list. We would be working with the successful consultant, and we can add to it, we can remove, so we'd certainly be open to changing that.
Thank you. Now we'll go for questions or comments from members of the public on this report. Yes, Mr. Dixon, come forward to a microphone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank Dixon, Williamsville resident. So I'm very happy to see this. I was following the file along when it got going on the red light cameras, and this was the result of Council's direction for more comprehensive analysis. So seeing a lot of things I like already. I'm just wondering if the updated census numbers have been included, because those just came out a little while ago. Seeing a little bit of variance on the numbers that are quoted compared to the ones that were reported in the media. Also want to repeat a point that I've made before. Given that we have a very large out-of-town post-secondary population of students that isn't actually included in the census. Maybe a way of finding to use the data there so that it's more accurate. And we're also a regional center, so we're attracting visitors from the rural areas around us. So perhaps we have more traffic from that than our base population would lead us to believe. Looking at the table on page 8, where you have some collision numbers and comparables, I'd just like to see, as the report proceeds, more detailed analysis of cities that are comparable in size to Kingston across Ontario and Canada. So that's something I'd like to see. And we were talking a little bit about the patterns of collisions, and I'm wondering if we could see data on the seasonal variation of that, if there is any, according to, say, during the post-secondary year and the tourist period. I think some of the councillors already hit at my next point, but just want to reinforce that. Looking at the detailed information and examination of certain major intersections and what happens there. So that was a theme that was hit during the red light camera examination. I've got one concrete, I guess, a suggestion for enhanced traffic safety. I think I've made this report here as well in the past, but I'll say it again. Be more of a focus on detailed signage and safety measures at double stream crossings, especially if you have more than one lane on the stream, where you have a median that's separating the lanes of traffic. So that maybe you can cross to one median and then you have to wait for the next one, just so people are aware that they're crossing two streams of traffic and often going at high speeds. So the example I would use is around Kingston Centre. You've got 3 arterials right there. You've got Sir Johnny Macdonald Boulevard, you've got Bath Road, and you've got Princess Street, where you've got a lot of transit vehicles, high volumes of traffic virtually all times of the day. You've got schools nearby, library, the Y is there, major shopping, all that stuff that's going on. So very high incidence of pedestrians, cyclists, traffic. All those things leads to more potential for accidents. And then just looking at on page 12, where you have a road safety advisory group. So I think this is a very good start, but I'm just a little curious as to why maybe groups from Queen's, St. Lawrence College, and the base wouldn't be included there as well. I think Queen's especially, because there's a lot of jaywalking that goes on around campus, and it's a busy area for traffic. Certainly you have the new scramble crossing there that's made things a lot better. But, so those are my suggestions, and I'll look forward to seeing the progress as the project continues, if it's approved. And I'll just close by saying that in my opinion, the project's expense will be justified by future improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe that was a mixture of comments and questions. If staff wrote down any questions, you're free to respond at this time. There are no other members of the public present.
Those were all good comments, and we'll certainly take those under advisement. And we did note we can update the population. So the only thing that's going to change in our report is we've made some reference to fatalities and injuries per 100,000 population. So I ran the numbers with the updated population, and you're not even going to see a difference in that, but it's something certainly that we'll consider for the future.
Yes, I take from your answer that it's not possible to run that projection with theoretical student transient numbers added, because we have never had an accurate count of those. So that's not within the realm of possibility. We live with that every day here at the city, I believe. The idea that we know the students are here, but we don't know how many there are because there's no way of counting them. Although you could look at full-time enrollments at each of the institutions and add those, but we've never done that. Anyhow, We will move on now to the recommendation itself. It needs to be moved and seconded so we can discuss it. Who would like to do that? Councillor Neal is moving the recommendation, which is on page 2 of the package, seconded by Councillor Schell. I will read the recommendation so we know what we're talking about, and comments will be restricted to this. So the recommendation in the package is that the EITP committee recommend to council the following: that the terms of reference for the Vision Zero road safety plan be accepted, and that staff be directed to release the request for proposal such that work can commence prior to the third quarter of 2017, and that a budget in the amount of $200,000 for this project be funded from the Working Fund Reserve. So this is a recommendation we're making to council. Who would like to speak? Councillor Hutchison.
I'd probably speak on behalf of everybody that once you know you can improve the situation, you're kind of obligated to do it. From a moral point of view, if nothing else. The one thing I would suggest, though, if when this comes to council, if you could show more information, because usually there's a report, but if you could add more information about the results of the Edmonton Vision Zero program, then it could be demonstrated what the benefits are. And councilors are going to decide whether it's a significant amount. Or you can tell them whether it's statistically significant or not, right? So I think that's the only thing that's missing from this report. It tells us how we're going to do it, but it doesn't tell us what the benefits might be, because you can't say for sure, right? But I think it's in line with what we've been doing before. And like I said, I don't see how you can avoid it.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Mr. Vice Chair, would you take the chair? I'd like to comment as Sydenham councillor. Councillor Cannon, sorry, you're the Vice Chair.
I will, and I recognize you. Sorry, I was daydreaming there. Forgot I was vice
Thank
chair.
you. I thought I was looking at you. Thank you. Okay, so as councillor, in a district that contains not only many students, estimate around half of my inhabitants are residents that are enrolled at the Queen's University, and some at St. Lawrence as well, but also with a predominantly pedestrian population because of its proximity to the downtown. I am absolutely thrilled that you're recommending a Vision Zero approach with the comprehensive road safety plan. When we discussed red light cameras, I was against the idea because I found it too draconian, the downside to be greater than the upside, essentially, although I know that the chief of police was asking for any help he could get on safety, and therefore he was in favor. To me, the questions remained after that debate in my own mind. I wasn't confident that was the right way to go. However, Vision Zero is as it explains in the report, frames it as saying that any fatalities from traffic collisions is too many fatalities. That's where the zero comes from. And I think that anyone who's lost a loved one to a traffic fatality, whether in a vehicle or as a pedestrian or as a cyclist or a skateboarder or whatever, you can agree that it's a senseless death. I know I've seen my share at ICU, and it is a depressing fact of life how frequent they are. In fact, I even remember a police officer as a patient who had been struck while he was a cyclist in a vehicle versus cyclist collision. And I remember how much that affected me at the time because he had done nothing wrong. He was even in a bike lane when it happened. This Vision Zero approach is the right way to do it, and not only because of that aspect, of the zero aspect, but also because the overall recommendation, which was the direction of council, which was, okay, let's put aside red light cameras for a minute and talk about a comprehensive road safety plan, which I believe was recommended by staff during the debate. I believe that's what Councillor Bohm said when he presented it. I would like to commend staff for making that recommendation because it is now clear to me that what you're recommending is an overall higher level view of road safety rather than focusing on right away on a possible solution because it came up as an option. We've gone to the higher level and we're looking at the big picture now. And from that perspective, we're already recommending, or staff is recommending, the Vision Zero approach, not only because it's a best practice type of approach, but because of presumably Councillor Hutchison's question can be backed by some preliminary work in other Canadian municipalities that will give strength to the argument. I think what he's saying is help us make the case for this at council by giving us more ammunition about how it has been a plus in other communities. If you do that, then it should be well received. I personally plan to support it today, and with that extra information, I'll probably support it at council as well. Thank you.
I return the chair.
Thank you. Are any other comments? I see no one proposing amendments, so I might as well call the question. So on the recommendation, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. On to the next item of business, which is a report from Keefe from January 30th, 2017. The report is that the Kingston Environmental Advisory Forum reports and recommends as follows. Support of bike share initiatives, that the Kingston Environmental Advisory Forum supports the exploration of bike share as a method of supporting active transportation and reduction of carbon from commuter travel, and that the Kingston Environmental Advisory Forum supports any request for capital support from the provincial government and encourages partnerships with post-secondary institutions. This procedurally, sorry, Councillor, I'm just going to frame this. Procedurally, this comes to us because Keefe reports to EITP, and this is a recommendation from Keefe, and if we pass it today, it becomes a recommendation from EITP. Councillor Neal.
Yes, I have two minor amendments that I've shared with both the clerk, and I believe he has a copy of it, and I also shared it with the chair. Given the fact that both the province and the federal government are encouraging green, are donating, that's the wrong word, that are giving funds to municipalities for green projects, I would like to add, after provincial in the last resolve clause, so it would read the provincial and/or federal government, because there may be an opportunity to seek funds from the federal government as well. And a final resolve clause, and I checked with the clerk and the chair, and I could have done this at council, or we can do it now. And what I'd like to do now is have a final resolve clause that says that it be further resolved that this motion be shared with MPP Sophie Koala and MP Mark Gerritsen. So it's just giving a stream of who should receive copies of this, since it does involve provincial and federal. So that's my amendment, which I've already debated at the same time that I was presenting. So if I can have a seconder for that, I'll shut up.
Okay, I see that there is a seconder coming, but before we go any further, I just want to confirm with the clerk procedurally that we're going about it the right way. So just one sec. Okay, so procedurally, this is what's happened. It doesn't change the end result. The Keefe motion has to be reported verbatim, but EITP can make its own recommendation. So the clerk has already copied the Keefe motion, and he will, he's considering this rather than an amendment of this motion. It's a whole new motion. It's an EITP motion, so it'll be reported to council as an EITP motion with wording based on the Keefe motion, but with the additional wording added by Councillor Neal. So that's what we're debating, a new motion now that EITP recommends this wording with the addition of federal government and the addition of a report to the MPP and the MP. So it's a separate EITP motion that we're
I appreciate that. That's a clearer statement. It was pointed out by two of my colleagues that what is the myth of the perfectly obvious? It's perfectly obvious to Keith what bike share is, but perhaps we should have a whereas clause added to my portion, to the EITP portion of the motion that just might say whereas, yeah. So if you can capture this, I can write it down if you.
Sorry, you want adding some definition for bike
a
share?
Whereas bike share is a successful program in Hamilton and is operated revenue neutral. And bike share offers the opportunity for members in the community or tourists to be able to access bikes at any time. Therefore, they access them.
Sorry, we might have to take a short break to get the wording right for the format that it's in, but I understand what you want to do, because the words bike share, it wasn't necessary to define them at Keefe because everyone at Keefe knows what bike share means, but it might be necessary to define it for council. That's slightly different from giving rationale for the recommendation in the form of whereas clauses that also serve as a definition. So, so you're proposing essentially a friendly amendment to your motion that adds two whereas clauses. So we will consider it all as one motion, but we need to get it all down first. So we'll take a brief recess to you can come over here and make sure the clerk has it, and then he'll read it out, and then we'll know what we're debating. So we're going to take like a 2-minute break right now, so you're at ease. Okay, I'm back. So we're actually, so I'm going to put your new motion on pause for a minute because we have to deal with the 7B first. So 7B is a verbatim report from Keefe. Okay? So it just says Keefe reports and recommends as follows. I've already read it out. We need to say yay or nay to Keefe's recommendation before we deal with Councillor Neal's new motion. So we need a mover and a seconder for the Keefe, essentially to support Keefe's recommendation. So moved by Councillor Neal, second by Councillor Camden. Anyone wish to speak to Keefe's verbatim recommendation? Councillor Neal's already spoken, but what he's suggesting is something we're going to deal with in another section. So on this verbatim motion, all those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Now, that's the end of business, and now we're on to motions. So this is number 8. And what we have here is a new motion written just now by Councillor Neal that the clerk will read out, and then we will move and second it and debate it. It's moved by Councillor Neal. Actually, I need a seconder for him to read it out. So seconded by Councillor Camden.
Whereas Bike Share is a successful program in Hamilton, Ontario, and is operated revenue neutrally, and whereas Bike Share offers the opportunity for members of the community and tourists to be able to access bikes at any time at reasonable cost, therefore, be it resolved that the EITP supports the Keefe recommendation with the addition of seeking potential funding from provincial and federal governments, and be it further resolved that this motion be shared with Member of Provincial Parliament Sophie Kiwala and Member of Parliament Mark Gerritsen.
So before we debate, you'll just notice that the way this ended up was a recommendation to council from EITP, moved by Councillor Neal, that is recommending adding these elements to the Keefe recommendation. That is what the motion is. I think that's the right way. I'm fine with that. I think that should be the right way. That makes sense procedurally. So now, yes, Councillor Neal, any further comments?
In having heard that, and you did a great job of capturing the main part, if it's a friendly amendment, so I'm looking to my seconder, if we could add Windsor and Peterborough, so we say has been a successful program in Hamilton, Windsor, and Peterborough, because those are the 3 places that it's now operating. So.
Yeah, that's a friendly amendment. It's just adding 2 more cities. Okay, so anyone wish to address the new motion? Councillor Hutchison.
It's really a question. I'm not sure, I'm in favor of the concept. I'm just not sure what we're asking anyone to do. It just says it supports this, supports that. We're sending it to the MP and MPP, that's fine, which seems to suggest please look on such programs favorably. Period. Right? I mean, if we're going to go to council and we believe this is a good thing, we should be saying something a little stronger, like we would like to encourage the federal and provincial governments to support this program, unless everybody here thinks that's what we're doing here. To me, it's just a set of statements, and now it's better because it has an explanation about what it is. You see what I'm saying?
No, I understand your point. So are you suggesting an amendment to this motion, or that it needs to be rewritten as a stronger recommendation?
Yeah, like in the sense of where you say you're going to send it.
Could I speak to the question from my colleague, please?
Sure, go ahead.
There is a history behind all of this. Somebody from KCAT, the MAC person, the person from Municipal Affairs, AMS person, Francis, Roger, and I went to Hamilton. We explored it. We set up a meeting and invited our engineering department to come. Mark was there. Peter was there. I was there. We spoke with Sophie Kiwala about this project and this program. And I explained to her that it was totally funded through Metrolinx. Their $1.8 million bought all of the bikes and all of the infrastructure, and it was set up in Hamilton as a not-for-profit organization that operates it, and it doesn't cost the city anything except they have about a third of an FTE person out of engineering and out of communications, I think, that assist with the bike share. It's the bikes are that Hamilton uses, and Windsor and Peterborough use different ones, but the bikes that Hamilton use come from the New York City bike share program. They're really sturdy bikes. They aren't the big ugly bikes that you see in Toronto and Montreal. They look like just a good sturdy bike, and they have a GPS system on them. You can lock them up anywhere. There are stations, and you lock them up for free. You can lock them up anywhere else in the city, and you're charged, and everything's done on a credit card, and you're charged, I think, a dockage fee of $2 or something if you just leave it locked up safely somewhere else. They do have their own mechanics. They have had a really successful, they have, I think, 750 bikes and a couple of dozen stations around the city. Their busiest stations are the university and in the core of the city. So that's the background. So there is a considerable amount of background. I'm really happy to talk to you as Francis or Roger would be happy to talk to you about what we learned from that. And so we began that process. Keefe moved this motion at their meeting to support that. I hadn't written a motion for this because, as I understand it, the mayor's office, the CAO's office, were exploring with Sophie's office how to make this happen. And there's going to be $2.5 million a year, I believe. Or is it?
Sorry, Councillor, now, this background information is important. However, it started with
Does it address your questions?
It's Councillor Hutchinson has the floor, and he is essentially stating that he thinks we need to make a stronger recommendation to council. So if you have a way of doing that, we either have to amend this or give a different motion. So you have the floor, so what would you like to do?
Sure, and I don't want to spin this out if nobody agrees, so just say so if you don't. I think the background is good, but it didn't address what my concern. And it seems to me if you're going to put a motion forward, you should ask for something, okay? You should say, what action do we want? And this just states that people support it and we're going to share it with the provincial and federal government. So I would suggest that after it says post-secondary institutions, that it say that Kingston City Council requests that the provincial and or federal governments fund a bike share program in the city of Kingston. And then go on and say we share it with these people. So if you don't,
Okay,
otherwise this is going nowhere. It doesn't ask for
So the
anything.
question for the committee is that an amendment to the motion or is that another motion? So, and if we're going to pass it, we need to kind of agree on that. I could make a ruling, but if I had any indication, well, I'll ask the mover first. Do you consider that a friendly amendment to your motion?
I think the motion...
You just say yes or no.
No, I think it's more complex. It's making a stronger statement than I intended to make with my motion. Because there already are wheels turning between the mayor and the CAO.
Okay, so I'm hearing that he would like that a suggestion to be separate from his motion. So we would have to you'd have to introduce it as an amendment, and we would have to deal with it separately.
No, I'll just drop it. I just can't see how this is going anywhere.
Right. Okay, so you'll have to incorporate that into your thinking on whether you want to support this motion now. So the motion, so anyways, Councillor Schell, you're up next.
First of all, what are we going to be voting on shortly? The motion from Keefe? Or have we already voted on the motion?
No, the motion from Keefe is,
So now it's the one
reported
from-
verbatim.
Reporting from EITP. I'd like myself to keep it as simple as possible because we don't really know what we're telling council. We don't know about bike share. We don't have an information report background on this. We've been told anecdotally that the mayor and the CAO are working on it. We're blind. So let's keep it as simple as possible so that council doesn't wind up in the same kind of discussion we're having right now. It's way too confusing.
Thank
So
you.
I can pass it, but let's keep it as simple as possible.
Thank you. So, and I believe it is quite simple at the moment. Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to follow those comments as a member of the committee.
I think we might be splitting hairs to a certain degree, and I like the original recommendation, but I do think that we may be getting too deep into this now. The more I think about it, maybe we're getting a little too deep into it at this level, and just get it forward and then have that discussion when the time's appropriate.
Well, I agree with the Vice Chair that this is really a discussion for council, but we do have a motion on the floor, and I just want to point out as context that the Keefe motion does say supports the exploration of bike share, which is quite simple. That's very simple, and this motion includes that language because it was written in that way. So really, this motion is asking for the exploration of bike share as a method of supporting active transportation and reduction of carbon. And the theme that was brought up by Councillor Hutchison's aborted amendment was a specific ask. That is addressed in a very superficial way in the second clause. Supports any request for capital support from the provincial, and this one adds, or federal government, right? So that's as far as the ask goes, supports the idea of seeing what funding's available, essentially. And beyond that, I understand the mover wants to leave it in the capable hands of staff and the CAO. Reporting it to the other two local members makes perfect sense. So I plan to support, I'm saying this as a committee member, I plan to support the motion as is, and I believe it's as simple and as complicated as it needs to be, and then we can have a deeper conversation at council and hopefully with the help of staff at that point. So I'm done if you can.
I return the chair.
Thank you. So I'm back to being chair. Councillor Schell, you want to speak again?
Just in the sense that, first of all, is there staff at a Keefe meeting? Are there city council staff? Okay. Because the worst thing you can do to somebody is ask them to start reporting on something that they've had no heads up on. And we've already not known about bike share, and I don't know if there are 6 other types of bike share in North America. Okay. Good, but we
There
do
were
have to
3
be
members
very...
of staff at the initial meeting that Councillor Mayo was talking about. So I believe they know which type of bike share is
Good.
being
It's
referenced.
just as you know, for running a city, you need to have a process, and you can't spring things on even a council who don't have a report, who will do the same thing we've just done. What's bike share? So let's just try to keep, as I say, keep it as simple as possible. We pass this. If it comes up as a huge issue at council, you know, we could be in the weeds for an hour. So just so we're aware and alert. Thanks.
Yes, and just procedurally, it seems to me that without a report from staff, there's only so much we can do to talk about this, and we might have to direct staff in that sense. Council might have to direct staff if we wanted that report to be forthcoming, and that's not what's in this recommendation. So, if everyone's done commenting, debating, I will call the question. Anyone, any last, it's a motion, right? Members of the public? Yeah, members of the public can comment or ask questions about a motion. Go ahead. Staff is not involved in this discussion, though, so they have to be addressed at members of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was at the Keefe meeting that actually discussed this, So I know some of the background, and I'm supportive of the plan that Keith has taken to EITP and then EITP wants to go to council with. But what I would have liked to see was more detail in what Keith brought this committee. All they have is a couple of that clauses, and there's really no background. And that was supplied by Councillor Neal and then other discussions. So it's a little flimsy in terms of wanting to get any sort of concrete action out of. So I go along with that sentiment. The additions that have been made, I think, are great. It's putting some flesh on it, but maybe the action has to come through the means of getting a report from staff after this goes to council and is received there. I'm just trying to kind of think like a bureaucrat. I understand a little bit of how this place works now. So, but I in terms of the overall concept, I think it's fantastic. And I'd be a possible customer of it myself, and hope to see it happen. Maybe this, this term of council can actually see it realized and put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. That being said, unless anyone has any last comments, we will vote on the motion by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Candon, the wording provided with the 2 levels of government and the whereas clauses, and the sharing with the 2 other levels of government. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And that's it for motions. Are there any notices of motion? Is there any other business? There were 3 items of correspondence. We're now on number 11 in the package. There was a letter from Mr. Dixon on the Transportation Master Plan, transit enhancements. There's 2 letters in the addeds. Where's the addeds? Right here. I'm just going to, so you know what's been added, correspondence from Mr. Weavers that identical to the presentation, the delegation, and the petition, which we already saw at council, which is in the addeds about skateboards and bicycle lanes, 96 signatures, which Councillor Neal presented 2 council meetings ago. And that's the 3 items of correspondence. After that, we have our next meeting, which is 5 weeks away, minus 1 day, on April 11th. And now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Schell, all those in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.